there's still 16,000 over properties, right, that are unsold. With this, right, does this mean that the property developers will start to lower prices? I believe that in the year 2024, there will be an oversupply of properties because up till today, the number of completion is 3 times more than the year 2022. And when you look at the numbers, this is the largest number of completion since 2017. And up till today, there's still 16,000 over properties that were left unsold. Because of this oversupply, prices will tank in the year 2024.
I disagree there. I really don't think there will be an oversupply in the market.
So let's find out. Why I believe there is an oversupply in the market is because there is just too many units completed. 17,000, which is 3 times more than what was completed last year within the same time period.
So what? Alright, I think 17,000 units completed have no relevance to it being oversupplied or not, because if we have like 30,000 or 50,000 new population coming in, this 17,000 units is needed anyway to fulfill the requirement or fulfill the demand from this new population increment, right? So it's not a big deal if you think about it.
But this is the most number of units that's going to be completed since 2017. With this much of volume coming online, right, this will mean that rentals may start to fall.
I mean, number one, we got to look at, even pre-pandemic itself, right? Is there any period of time where we were completing like 15,000 units, 20,000 units, right? And has it ever been an issue in Singapore that these units were never filled up? I don't think so, right? If not, then why would our occupancy level be so high? Given this fact, just because there's 17,000 units today that's being completed, right? It usually comes from, let's say, that few big projects that because it's on bigger scheme, there's just more units being completed during this point of time. But the key here to me is that as long as this is ultimately rented out, it's not an issue of oversupply, it's just an issue of how long does it take out to rent. Right? Maybe in a better market, it takes 2 weeks to rent. To me, if it takes 4 to 5 weeks to rent, still not a big deal to me, right? It's nowhere near oversupply.
Well, if you look into the reports, right, our news have been saying that with the high rents, our expats are moving out of Singapore.
Okay, that's a very interesting thing to think about, right? But if you ask me logically, even though if there are some expats that want to move out because obviously of the high rents, right? I think in Singapore perspective,
unaffordability in Singapore.
But in Singapore perspective, right, I believe that we are one of the better countries for expats to come in because we pay them well. Alright, that's number one. There's a lot of job opportunities. And I believe there's a whole line of people that wants to work in Singapore rather than not. So ultimately, I think that as long as there is replacement for this expat that goes out of Singapore or choose not to work in Singapore, as long as there's an equal replacement or more replacement that comes in, then oversupply is never an issue, because as we build more, as government want to increase our population as per their policy, which they have always been saying they need to increase the population, then supply is something that's needed. If not, then where do these people stay? It's going to get worse, right? The whole situation. It doesn't matter how many expats is leaving, right? I think the main key thing is how many expats are coming into the country, right? Is it still a net positive if you think about it? And not to mention, of course, Singapore government have a very strong policy to make it Singapore a very attractive place to attract foreign talent because of the very fact that Singaporeans are not having enough babies, right? So please have more babies, right? So in this scenario, as long as we have a growing population, there needs to be homes to stay in. And ultimately, as long as there are homes to stay in, rents should be good in the long-term perspective.
I think if you are waiting for Singaporeans to have babies as a strategy to fill up your vacancies, I think you're going to wait for a damn long time.
Very long, right? So I think foreign talent needs to come in no matter what to really fill up the workforce itself.
Talking about vacancies, right? From last quarter to this quarter, the vacancy has gone up from 6.3 to 8.4. With this rising vacancy, don't you think rents will start to come down, and with that, property prices?
I think that's a very scary number to look at, because why? If you look at everything so microly, right? It's the quarter-to-quarter data, which means that it's just 3 months to 3 months, right? 6 point something to 8 point something. However, what we should look at is a more long-term data, which means a 1-year comparison data, rather than just looking at quarter-to-quarter. Why? Because my suspicion is very simple. If this quarter data is higher because of the fact that there is more completion being being done in this particular quarter, which I believe should be the main 3 big projects, alright, Florence, residences, Normanton Park, and maybe Treasures at Tampines. Probably these three completions like what makes up close to 50% of the whole completed unit this quarter, right? Of course, it takes time for the market to absorb. So yes, I agree that this month the data is not so good, but what should tell us better would be just comparing on year-to-year data. I think that's something that we should look at instead.
Whether it's year to year, 8+% is still very high.
Yeah, but previous quarter was 6%, right? So 6% is okay. 8+ years might look high, but I think the key here is to really look at the next few quarters to come, all right? And in fact, to compare the year to year. But I think that being said, I mean, on the ground data for me, right? I mean, I noticed that rents might take a bit longer, all right, to be filled up. So what does this mean? That maybe previous few quarters it might take 2 to 3 weeks for us to find a tenant. Now it might take like 4 to 6 weeks. But as I said, to me it's just a matter of time, right? I mean, the key here is that, I mean, as a property investor, you're investing for the sake of renting out, then do just take note that I think it's a good prudence to make sure you have 2 to 3 months rental or mortgage buffer to ensure that you can get through such micro irregularities when it comes to vacancy rate.
I think one key thing, right, is that there's still 16,000 over properties, right, that are unsold. With this, right, does this mean that the property developers will start to lower prices?
Well, I mean, 16,000 seems really scary. I gotta agree, right? Because it's not like a few hundred, it's not a few thousand, it's like 16,000, right?
Yeah.
And once again, we look at history, right? I think 16,000 is actually still considered very, very low, even compared to pre-pandemic level. If you really look at the earlier part of, let's say, 2012, 2013, 2014 numbers, we are like significantly much higher as compared to this 16,000. We look at 30 over 1,000 figure, right? That is basically unsold. Now today, we are probably considered in the last decade, we are probably still in the lowest number when it comes to unsold property, right? So if you ask me, if you can get through 30 over 1,000 unsold, what's 16,000? 16,000 is nothing. In fact, I think that the number of unsold should be higher so that the prices become more stable, right? And so that there's don't have this FOMO kind of thing. So I think it's a healthy number and it's far cry from the oversupply thing that you're talking about.
Okay, I hear you, but if you look at the whole situation, right, wouldn't there be moments, right, there will be oversupply of properties and undersupply?
Yeah, okay, let's talk about this realistically, right? I think that property doesn't just get built over a month period. It gets built over 3, 4, even sometimes even 5 years period, right? And of course, let's say, for example, if there's a projection for population increase, let's say 100,000 population increase over the next 3 years, all right, then it's very difficult, obviously, to time it exactly in terms of how many properties is to be tendered out, is to be built, all right, in the next 1 to 2 months to come, right? Even if you have a projection of 100,000 new population. So technically, there will be times when there's more completed unit and there is slower incoming rate of new citizens or foreign talent. But there will be also times where there is more incoming as compared to so-called the completion rate. So we are not living in a perfect market. So I think the key here is to really have prudency. All right, is no matter what, do have a comfortable safety net to ensure that you have enough runway to cover, let's say, a couple of months of mortgage, such that we are never in a position where we are so desperate for tenants, such that you need to so-called quickly sell out your properties. So I think that's, so exercise prudency when it comes to buying any form of properties, all right? Don't always expect everything's going to be like beautiful, all right? Everything works out normally, right? I think there's always inefficiency in the market and expect that inefficiency as a normalcy.
Are you saying that I'm right that the property market is going to have too much supply in the next few years?
Okay, technically, yes, in a very short period of time because the market is never perfect. However, right, in a long-term perspective, I think we are a far cry from being oversupplied.
Thanks for saying I'm right, okay? I hear you.
Whatever makes you happy, right? You just for temporal segment, yes.
Fine, so if you agree with Shawn, right, give us a thumbs up. And if you agree with me, type in the comment to let us know how you feel about this whole property market situation.
And guys, do not forget to check out all our other videos, right? Such as diversification is rubbish.
See you. Bye.
See you guys.